Hey, everybody. In today's episode, it's myself, Benjamin B., and Kevin. Full transparency, we didn't know Kevin until today. Kevin comes in to do the podcast, and he has 14 years sober. Now, what's interesting about this interview, Kevin gets very vulnerable about the 14 years that he's been sober, what it took for him to finally get sober, and the hardships that he has had throughout his sobriety. He's had a divorce. He's been spiritually bankrupt. He's been financially in shambles, but he stayed sober throughout the whole entire time. And he talks about how his recovery and his well-being is directly proportionate to his relationship with God at that given moment. And through this episode, it's just a lot of growth, and you'll hear a lot of things that I should be doing more of and being of service to God and to other people. And ultimately, my primary purpose is to help the other fellow alcoholics and addicts out there. So we cover so much more in this episode. I know you're going to love it. Enjoy the show. Here we are, Real Recovery Talk. I'm your host, Tom Conrad. In today's episode, we've got Benjamin B.
What's happening, everyone?
And we have a gentleman by the name of Kevin. Kevin, how you doing, sir?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Do me a favor. Get that mic pulled. There you go.
See how close mine is?
Yeah, I was.
And Tom's.
There you go. Good.
You like it? It's real intimate.
Yeah, very. We like it that way. Hey, listen, first things first. Thank you for tuning in on the podcast app, whichever one that you choose to use. And thank you for watching on YouTube. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you could always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com, and ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. Right, boys?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
What's up, Ben?
Chilling, dude. You good?
You sprung one on me last night.
Yeah, I was excited, too. There was excitement in the text. Did you feel it?
Yeah, I'm laying in bed watching some stupid show that Amanda put on. So we'll open with this. There's this show on Netflix that is awful. Netflix, by the way, in my opinion, nowadays is the Walmart of streaming services. Do you guys agree?
Yeah.
I can't confirm it, did I? I'm not doing this publicly.
Okay. Well, I think Netflix is awful. But anyway, she had this stupid show picked out, and I'm watching it begrudgingly, and Ben sends a text. Hey, I got a guy for a podcast tomorrow, total God thing. And I'm like, I text back, okay, who is it? And then he says, well, I can't explain. I have to explain over the phone. And I'm like, all right, I'll call you in the morning. And that was the extent of it. So with that being said, Ben, I'll let you roll with this. Kind of give us an introduction on Kevin, and then we'll go from there.
So I just met Kevin last night.
That's right.
What, at 7 o'clock?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was on a spiritual high last night, too. It's funny because, as the listeners know, my life changed big time in April, and I'm down at my community pool, and there just so happens to be a bunch of people in recovery down there. And a guy that I met a couple months ago, this dude, Derek, he had just moved down from Mass, and he's like, hey, man, I got a sober house. I'm a group facilitator at this treatment center, and we just seem to have a lot in common. And he just happened to be down there. I was down there at the pool with Kai, and he had his little girl with him. Cute little girl, dude, adorable. She's probably like 2, something like that. But
is Kai hitting on her?
Bro, they were having fun. You know how Kai is. He's up.
Yeah,
dog.
he's just like his dad.
So, but I'm talking with Derek, man, and I'm like, dude, we were talking about my program. You know how we were just covering the other day on the previous episode? Like, people called me out recently. Like, I'm not going to as many meetings. I don't have as many sponsees as normal. And I was like talking with Derek, and I'm like, look, dude, yeah, I left my home group. I'm kind of doing like the nomad thing, and I was telling him, I'm like, look, dude, I want to go to a meeting where nobody like knows me, hit different random ones where I can just feel like, even if it's the same message, when you're hearing it put in a different way, it's still new, if that makes it, or it hits different, I should say. Mm. And he just so happens to hit me up like a couple hours later. He's like, hey, man, I actually have a men's meeting at one of my sober houses tonight, and shoots me the address. I'd love for you to come by. So I shoot over there, dude. And with Kevin, man, Kevin was a speaker. And just, dude, I was telling him last night when I shared, like, I felt like a newcomer. Like, there was things that he was saying, and this is going to sound like ego for a second, but like, I was really humbled in the moment, to be honest with you. Because, like, you know how sometimes you'll hear one of our clients or whoever say, oh, I picked a sponsee because they did my same drug of choice. And I'm like, well, that's a stupid reason to pick a sponsor is what I meant to say. You know, I just don't relate to that anymore with 14 years of sobriety. But there were certain things that he said. He's like, yeah, man, I shot heroin for 10 years. I got sober in 2010. I'm like, for whatever reason, like, that's what I needed to hear last night. And it, like, reminded me of what it was like when I was looking for the guy that was shooting heroin. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever the case is. There was just so much of what he said that I've heard before, but I really needed to hear last night. And then, dude, I'll let him take it from here because the things that he shared last night were just so eloquent. He's from Mass, so he's loud. I don't even know you, bro, but he could talk, and it's entertaining.
Yeah.
So,
All right, Kevin, the floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you, gentlemen, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. Thank you for having me on such short notice. And you know, for me, it's just the universe, right? I am a hopeless, reckless, selfish, dishonest, like unhealthy human left to my own devices. I take zero credit for any of my, you know, accomplishments other than like I keep moving my feet. I keep asking God for help. I keep asking for the people in my life for help. I take the action, but like, it's not me. I'm not smarter than or better than or stronger than anyone. And so I say that to say like, I really believe this is all divinely inspired, this whole meeting. I'm not like a super religious person in this form of like religious text, but I live a life religious, right? So they say like, oh, he goes to the gym religiously, right? That means devotely, routinely, without miss. So I live a religious life. I pray every morning. I pray every night. I go to a couple meetings every week. I don't miss my home group. I have a sponsor. I sponsor other men. I'm the treasurer of my home group, right? Those things are more abnormal to miss than to do. I very rarely miss them. It's just become a routine in my life. And so I believe in the power of the universe and the unavoidable things that are going to happen, whether you like them to happen to or not. And so basically like where I'm at in my life is like, I've just wrapped up a master's degree, super awesome thing, like 10, 11 years part-time chipping away, never having free time, got 2 beautiful kids. Me and their mom didn't work out, but like, you know, a couple days every week I have kids and just started this new job a year ago. And it's like, there's not a lot of time to breathe and pause and just slow down sometimes. And like, I am super hyper by nature. So I had a little bit of PTO and I'm like, you know what? We just got through the holidays. Both my kids' birthdays are in December. Another similarity, one of his son's birthdays in December. And it was a lot, right? And my mom, like last year, was going through chemo. Like she's good right now and her hair's just growing back. And then we just got news that my aunt, my brother's sister, he's got twin sisters in Portugal. One of them's got bone cancer. She doesn't sound good. She's down to like 70 pounds. She's probably going to pass. And there's like all this heaviness. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to get away. And this is something I do probably once a year. I do random strike missions to wherever USA, find a cheap Airbnb, sometimes with friends, sometimes alone. And so what ended up happening was I was talking to a friend down here. I'm looking at hotels. And before I booked a hotel, she's like, well, why don't you ask this guy, you know, if you can crash at his house? And I'm like, ego. I hate asking for help. I hate imposing. I don't want to be in your house. Like, I'd rather be independent in my hotel. But I was like, you know what? Whatever, I'll ask him. It just so happens a dude just closed on a house like 90 days ago. He's got a 3-bedroom and one of the extra bedrooms is fully made up with a nice bed. He's currently not dating anyone and he's going to be in town for 3 days and then he's flying out to Jersey on January 1. Please come down. I was like, okay, clearly then we're going to Lake Worth area, right? We're going to be, that's where we're going. The nice Lake Worth, right? Gated community. You need like the guy to call the guy to let you in, right? His whole compound was really nice. And that's kind of how it started. So it was just to come down here and chill and breathe. But a lot of people from all over the world, I think, land in Florida for a lot of different reasons. Some are fugitives of the law, some are seeking recovery, right? And so I have a couple of friends that are down here. And so he's referencing Derek, and Derek is this kid like that I grew up with. I'm a New Bedford kid, which means nothing to the World Wide Web that probably watches this, but it's like a typical city with projects and diversity and crime. And also with that is like a lot of culture and good restaurants. And it was a rough city. And when I started hanging around with Derek, like I was selling drugs and I was violent and we have some like wild stories. And so like he got sober and then he was running sober houses in Massachusetts and then he moved down here. So I'm like, let me just hit him up. And again, like the chances that like you're available to be here right now, that he's available without kids and like, yes, I'll come to the thing, that my boy Mike, who's like literally got a national job, he's never home. He's home for the days that I'm looking at coming on the days that I don't have kids. I have kids every other weekend and every other Wednesday. Like every other week I have a few days that I can escape. And like everything just kept falling into place without a lot of effort. So I called Derek just like, hey, if you got a minute, I'd just like to see you. Say what's up. He's like, yeah, no doubt. Let's grab dinner. An hour later, he's like, hey, now that I think about it, would you speak at my sober house tonight? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Opportunity to be of service. I got nothing else going on. And that's kind of how it all unfolded. And it's like, I don't know, dude, like I just keep showing up and I keep saying yes to things. And what I believe is like, I needed to speak at that meeting. I needed to see Derek. I needed to be with Mike, who, you know, he's going through a transition in his life. And I feel like people in early recovery, it's socially acceptable to be broken and need help. And I think when you get 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, whether it's an expectation put on us by our recovery communities, or if it's just my spiritual ego, which I talked about last night, I have to always be well. I have to always present as I have it together. I do a lot of social media stuff personally and professionally. And so I have an image. People think I'm well. People generally think I'm a nice guy. People generally think I'm healthy. And sometimes I'm not, dude. Sometimes I'm not okay. Sometimes I'm creating harm in my life. Sometimes I have shitty sex conduct. Sometimes I have gambling issues. Sometimes I'm super judgmental and I want to slap people, right? And like, sometimes I need to just get out of my own way and ask for help. And I feel like I wasn't even trying to do that. I just knew the spirit inside of me was like, yo, take time to be still, be quiet, chill out. And then kind of everything else unfolded from there, you know? And here we are, you know?
Told you, bro. I love that you brought that up. I'm going to be selfish here right now. And like, you know, oftentimes we're geared towards helping families navigate people in active addiction, getting them help. A lot of our listeners are in early recovery, you know, and I, to your point, dude, like I've watched people with 30 years commit suicide. I've watched people with 30 years pick up a drink again. And, you know, somebody said to me last night, in fact, on the phone after that meeting, like, they're like, Ben, people look up to you and are envious of where you're at. And here I am, dude, for the last like few months, constantly questioning myself and where I'm at. And like, am I doing good enough? Am I doing everything that I can do? Is my program not as strong as it was, you know, just constantly.
Right.
But to your point, man, like another good buddy of mine that's got 8 years sober, he said to me one night, he's like, heavy lies the crown, right? Like we got everything that we wanted in sobriety, dude. Like I have a beautiful life today.
Yep.
But at the same time, the amount of responsibility and stuff that comes with that, I'll say this, oftentimes I'll tell our clients, like, in many ways, like I got sober and my life got harder. I just got better at handling it.
Right.
I got the spiritual toolkit now, you know?
Right.
So it's interesting, dude.
I think so. It's funny because when you were saying that, I was now thinking of my buddy Scotty Bowe, who he's a successful real estate guy. He's got close to my time, maybe 10 or 12 years or whatever. And he came down to Florida to get treatment. And he was a retired corrections officer who got into real estate. And when you get into real estate or any business where you are generating X amount of revenue, right? Now you got tax implications. You got capital gains tax. And like, so then, you know, when we start talking about privately owned businesses, how creative do you get with your write-offs? And is it honest or dishonest, right? And so Scotty Bowe was down in this treatment center in Florida. I don't remember which one. And there was like an OG group facilitator, 40 years sober. And he sat him down and he says, Scott, do you consider yourself an honest person? And he's like, yeah, I'm an honest person. He's a Catholic. He's got a key to the church. He's a business person. He generally was a good guy. He just had a major pill problem, right? And the guy says, do you consider yourself honest? And Scott goes, oh yeah, absolutely. I'm an honest guy. He goes, do you lie in your taxes? And of course he does. Maybe not now, IRS. I'm sure he's an above board guy, but like, you know, fresh in treatment, he couldn't say that he doesn't embellish at that time. And the guy said, recovery is you're either all in or you're all out. There's no gray area. It's either honest or it's dishonest. It's either selfish or it's selfless. There's no gray area. And he had less time than me. And when he came, when we started hanging out, when he was like in early treatment and he said that, that really stuck with me. And my sponsor, same thing. He was like, look, dishonesty. The insanity of alcoholism and drug addiction is the inability to separate the true from the false. It's not the stuff that I do. It's the fact that I can't tell that I'm lying to myself. I can't see the reality. My perception's twisted. I have a false belief systems. I have false, like experiences, all my trauma. I've created these characters. They're not even real characters. Like, I'm not okay, dude. I don't live in reality prior to doing some 12-step work and getting well. And so I have to constantly be vigilant about the BS and the stories that I'm creating in my mind, because if I believe it's okay to embellish on my taxes, then I might believe it's okay to just flirt with that girl on IG as long as I don't sleep with her. And then I may get myself to believe that it's okay to just smoke a little weed or just take an edible because I have a bad back. Like, so the dishonesty was always like drilled into me, like how important it was. And like looking at my life, I've done multiple inventories, but especially the first one, it was very apparent that I was always lying to myself. I deceived myself and I deceived others. So to your point about being sober a little bit, I've always been hyper honest. So the only reason I believe I'm still sober today, like 4 years ago, I went through the breakup. 2 beautiful kids, beautiful girl, beautiful house, dead end street, driving the Lexus, got the job. Everybody's proud of me, making money, all the checklists that life says you should have and be happy. I'm not praying with as much intent. I'm not going to as many meetings. I'm not helping as many people. I'm not taking as much inventory. The kids and the wife and the house are the priority, as society says it should be. That's my experience. My experience is that's not the truth. If you're a heroin addict or a drug addict or whatever type of addict, recovery is the absolutely most important thing in my life. My recovery and my spiritual condition is more important than my 2 beautiful kids. It has to be, because if my spirit's not right, I can't be a good dad. And what ended up happening was I blew up my whole life. With anxiety, depression, judgmentalism, me and her were just going at it for like over a year in couples counseling, and ultimately decided to separate. And why? Because I was restless, irritable, and discontent, because life wasn't good enough, because I couldn't appreciate her, because I had a bad attitude, because I wasn't taking care of my spirit. At like 9 years sober, I chose to leave a beautiful home on a dead-end street with 2 beautiful kids under 2 years old and go get an apartment and start all over again. That's how sick I got. And then next thing you know, because I'm not well, I'm spinning out with the sex conduct and the gambling and the buying stuff and trying to fill the hole, until like I finally got humbled enough to go back to a meeting and say, hey guys, my name's Kevin. I'm an alcoholic. I'm not okay. I can quote the big book and I'm not okay. I have stuff and people respect me and I have the social media presence, but I'm not okay. I'm not okay. I'm doing all these things that are unhealthy, that are harmful. And like the truth is, I'm sad and I'm afraid and I'm so paranoid about like the next guy that might be around my kids. That's like so far in the future. It's not even a reality, but I'm already obsessing about that. I was all twisted up about like what child's what was going to look like before we even went to family court. I was just so alcoholic and so unwell. The only thing that saved me was I was able to get honest about it. And I was able to be new. At 9 years sober, I was able to be humble to say, hey, look, I know how to do life now. I'm an adult. Thank you for the 12-step world and my higher power and sponsorship and good, healthy people taught me how to be an adult. And the outside world is pretty stable and successful, but left untreated, I'm a mess on the inside again. And I didn't have to, but what I chose to do was get a new sponsor. I had the same sponsor for 9 years and he still had more to offer, but he lived like 45 minutes away from me. And like, I can quote the big book, right? If you start any sentence in the first 5 chapters, I'll finish it. Not because I'm smart, because if you read the same newspaper every day for 14 years, you'll remember a couple fucking articles. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just part of my life. So like, but that spiritual ego now that says, you're well, you know the book, you know what to do, pray for them, ask God, you know, they're sick people. Perhaps they've been spiritually sick as well. And all of a sudden, the big book and all my knowledge of it becomes a detriment because I'm using it to diminish or minimize the fact that I'm not okay and I need to do more work on myself. I'm using the big book, I'm weaponizing the big book to almost stay sick, right? So I found a guy that had 25 years sober. And I said, hey, look, man, I'm in some pain. I'm not doing okay. I need help. Will you bring me through the book again? And I grew up in the 12-step world that said, you never have to go through the book again. If you go through the book and you have a spiritual awakening, then you do all of 9, not just a couple so you can speak at a meeting, all of 9, and do 10, 11, and 12 the rest of your life. You never formally have to go through the steps again if you live in 10, 11, and 12. So I had that mindset, and like occasionally every year or two, like I would do an inventory, a written inventory, like a formal 10-step, a mini 4th step. And like I just got to the point where like I felt like things were stuck and I wasn't getting to the next level. So I had to humble myself. And I sat in this dude's shed and let him read the big book to me, word by word, line by line, and shut up and not share my insight and not say I know and just be a new guy with 9.5 years sober, become teachable again. And like what happened was I got to go through the steps again, and I got to see some more truths about myself, and I got to make some amends. And what happened is that my mind and my spirit completely changed, right? So current day, I'm still in a 2-bedroom apartment. I got smoked in child support, right? She got the house, right? She's probably dating and doing whatever she's doing. There has been men around my kids, and all those situations I was all twisted up about currently exist, but I'm completely okay. And the truth is, I'm blessed. I'm blessed to have 2 really healthy, stable kids, smart kids, well-adjusted kids. I'm blessed because even though I really hurt that woman, because that's what it is, I hurt her, we still bang heads sometimes. She's still not always the biggest fan of me. I'm blessed because she's a great mom. She's a sober mom. She got those kids in soccer and in dance class and all these different things. And like, I'll take a lady who's mad at me, who like maybe talks bad about me once in a while, who's a great mom, who's responsible for raising my children, than like some sick chick that like co-signs everything I say and she's an awful mom, right? So I had this a whole new psychic change. Now I'm like 10.5 years sober by the time all this stuff happens. And I'm like, it's not that bad. Like, I'm running around here crying poverty. Oh, well, I pay whatever amount a month in child support, right? I pay $600 a week in child support. And when you hear that, that's like, wow, $600 a week, that's a shock factor. And I said that almost looking for sympathy and probably defaming her in retaliation for, her talking bad about me and all this stuff, victimhood, right? At 10 years sober. Here's the truth. She pays $2,100 a month cash out of her pocket for daycare. So out of the $2,400 she gets, she has $300 to play with. She's not buying cars and going on vacation and living her best life because of my child support, right?
Yeah.
And the freedom that came from that reality is, no, know what you're doing? You're a sober dad paying for your kids' daycare. Good for you. Man up. That's what you should do. You have a healthy, stable mom. You have healthy, stable kids. Now I pray for her. I pray for her happiness. I pray for her success, because if she's successful and she's happy, that's going to have a direct influence on my kids. I don't want her to struggle. I don't want her to date some scumbag. I don't want her to be stressed out financially. I want her to be happy and healthy and blessed. And like, guess what? We've started to get along a little bit better. Big shocker, right? But the biggest hit that I got was I found peace with it. And the reality is, I'm not broke. I don't have savings, but all my needs are met. I'm blessed. Do I live check to check? Yeah, sure. Sometimes I do. I have a beautiful apartment. I drive a Cadillac. I came down to Florida and I can do that today, right? My kids are always fed. They had a good Christmas. I'm not broke living in a tent, dude. I'm living a very high quality life, inside and outside. And more importantly, like, God's got my kids. God's in the middle of all this stuff. As long as I can stay out of my way and keep that positive perspective, then all will be well. So like, my peace is in a direct correlation to the condition of my spirit, because nothing has changed on the outside. It's the same. And I'm completely chill, and I'm grateful for her now versus a few years ago, I'm a victim and she sucks. That's the stuff that real recovery is about. Recovery is not about abstinence. Recovery is about being restored to sanity, finding peace, finding purpose, finding happiness, finding a way to be of service to other people. And all the material bullshit is all secondary. I've had all the shiny stuff and been miserable. I was living in a halfway house, homeless, with open cases and warrants and everything in pawn, completely on fire, rocketed to the 4th dimension, right? So my experience is not the things that bring me peace, but my ego gets attached to stuff. God, I surrender. God, I surrender. God, I surrender. Then God's like, here's your job. Here's a degree. Here's a car. And all of a sudden it's like, all right, God, well, I kind of want to hold on to this now. Right. And like you were talking about last night, I think, or even you guys were talking about with Russell, was about this dynamic with the 3rd step. It's like, I have to continue to surrender, and I have to continue to admit that I'm powerless and my life is unmanageable on my own accord. I have to continue to acknowledge that, left unchecked, I am absolutely insane, in the sense that I tell myself stories that are not true. I act and behave in ways that harm other people, and somehow I justify it because I tell myself some BS story. And then I have to go back to that place. One of my favorite lines in the big book says, when we threw up our hands in doubt and said, we don't know. When I don't know, I'm teachable, and there's room to grow. When I think I know, like, I'm in trouble, and then who knows what will happen. Relapse is not out of the question with someone like me. That's one fear I've always kept, a respect for the disease.
It's a lot there.
Yeah, dude.
Really good stuff. I wanted to ask you something.
Mm.
When you started noticing, maybe at either 9 or 10 and a half years sober, that your perspective started changing, like with your wife and the once, call it hatred that you had or dislike or whatever. And now it's like shifting into, I'm praying for her and I'm doing, my heart is being softened towards her. Was there any part of you that was like, I don't want this to happen? Like, in other words, like, it's my poopy diaper and I want to sit in it. Like, I don't want my heart to be softened for her. I don't want to have this perspective shift, but because of the actions that you're taking, like, it's happening anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so that was definitely my experience the first year. I was so angry and so fearful. I had zero desire to look at myself. I was like, she sucks. She was mean to me. She's taking advantage of me. Poor me. And I was acting out because there's almost a drug in that. Like, I remember I was like 18 months or 2 years sober, and I had done the steps, but I hadn't made all my amends, and I wasn't really living in 10 and 11 really well. And I was playing basketball with the homies in the hood, and someone disrespected me, escalated. I got in a fist fight at 2 years sober. For the next 2 days, I was so juiced up. I was ready to kill everybody. I'm like, forget this praying for sick people shit. I'm going to fuck people up now. You know what I mean? Like, when I got high off that anger, like, I wanted to run with it. And I knew, like, when I'm done with this, I'll go back to God and I know what to do, right? So there was some of that when I left her. When I finally got the courage to leave, I had this self-righteous, like, justification to be angry and run around and tell everybody how bad she was and how bad of a deal I got out of it. And like, that co-signed all the unhealthy behavior. And so what ended up happening was I didn't have a come to Jesus, like, I want to be a better person situation, to be honest. What ended up happening was, like, I was causing harm. And people in my network were starting to check me. And now I'm like Kevin Rosario, the podcast guy, the speaker guy, the professional. I got an MBA. I'm working for programs. Like, it's very public, like, that I'm the recovery guy. And for most of the part, that was authentic. Like, I lived a pretty authentic recovery life. I am a decent person. I do show up. I was not doing scumbag stuff. But what ended up happening was, like, people are hearing and seeing me swear a lot more. People are finding out, like, I'm sleeping with random women or whatever. People are finding out that I was telling somebody about themselves, and people are like, yo, Kev, what's up, bro? And like, my ego actually helped me in the sense that, like, I had pride associated with how far God in this program has taken me, how it took me from, like, this scummy drug addict, drug dealer, punk, to, like, a person that people respected. And when it started to hit me that my behavior is not secretive and it's going to affect my reputation, I then said, oh my God, like, I may affect my ability to be useful to other people. My sponsor said when I left the program, I was in a program for like 10 months. I didn't move back home until I was on my 9th step amends. He said, go stop making amends and start sponsoring people immediately. And he goes, most importantly, watch how you behave wherever you go, because you may be the only copy of a big book that anyone ever sees. And I took that, like, as a responsibility. Like, what does that mean? That means, like, especially the haters of the big book and the higher power thing, if you're the big book higher power guy and they see you, like, kicking the dog at Buttonwood Park or whatever, if they see you, like, acting like a jerk in Walmart because some lady's got 14 items in the 12 or less lane, like, people are going to see that and say, oh yeah, look at Mr. Recovery over there. Guy's a jerk. So, like, be mindful that people are watching you, and attraction, not promotion. So if you live a loving, kind, passionate life of service, then other people might say, wow, look at that dude, Ben, bro. He seems happy. He's kind of going through it, but he's okay. I'm going to ask him what he does. What do you do? How are you doing that? Right. And so, but if the opposite is, I'm talking about recovery, but I'm living dirty and I'm causing harm and I'm throwing shade on my baby mama and all that, then people are going to be like, ugh, that's not attractive. That's not what I want. And so when it hit me that my behavior was affecting my character, I was afraid that my behavior was going to affect my 12-step fellowship as a whole. And then ultimately, I was afraid that my behavior would put me in a position where people wouldn't allow me the chance to try to help them. And if I don't help newcomers, I don't stay well, and I drink and I get high. So, like, that's kind of how it happened. I was living in that rah-rah, I don't care, she sucks, let me be reckless and be free now, until the consequences of that actions started to be disclosed to me, that, like, people know, bro, it's not a good look for you. And, like, I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to be a hypocrite. I was always taught, like, that, not to, you got to practice what you preach. And so that was kind of the turnaround when I realized like it's gone too far. Enough is enough. I need to do something because one, not only am I ruining my reputation, but like how long can you live a harmful life before the disease convinces you to go drink or get high? And so that's when I went and asked for help.
It's accountability. That's what Ben and I talked about that on the last episode. Really, having people positioned in our lives that are able to call us out on that stuff.
Yeah.
And that only happens by having solid people in your life. There's a lot of people inside of 12-step rooms that are absolute lunatics,
right,
and that are crazy. But the thing is that like, if you position yourself to where you have good people in your life and you're willing to, because you obviously were in a position, people start calling you out on your behaviors, even at that point that you could have told them to go fly a kite and still acted the same way.
Right.
But something happened with you internally over the years to where you're like, okay, I need to look at this.
Right.
And I like what you said about people won't want to work with me because I'm not a direct representation of probably what they're looking for.
Right.
And if I'm not working with people, that means that I will pick up again.
Right.
And I think that's one of the most simplistic ways that you can put this, like this whole 12-step thing isn't, I say it all the time. We're not curing fucking cancer here. This isn't a hard thing. It's very enlightening. It's very truth telling. You learn a lot about yourself and the people around you and who you hang around with and stuff like that. But in the end, it's, doing some inventory work on yourself, knowing why you're an asshole, who you've hurt, make those amends and start fucking helping people,
right.
And if people don't want to be helped by you, then it'd be like me deciding, hey, Ben, guess what? I'm going to become a personal trainer. Well, I ain't going to get no clients because I don't look like a personal trainer and I'm not going to make any money. I'm not going to be able to sustain myself.
Right.
Now, if Ben goes and says, hey, I'm going to start doing personal training, he's going to get flocked with people because he looks the part, he speaks the part, acts the part. So anyways, what you got, Ben?
I'm processing this whole thing where you were talking about you got the new sponsor, and if I heard you correctly and interpreted it correctly, you felt like a newcomer again. And that, dude, because that's like what I'm seeking right now. I want to feel like a newcomer again because there's something about, dude, I remember being in early recovery and just on fire for this program, dude. Like and I always talk about it, the best years of my sobriety where the most growth occurred was probably years like 3 to 5, dude, where I was on fire for sponsor guys, taking guys through steps. Every time it was like an experience that I was so grateful for every single time. And now down the road, I'm like, I want to feel that again.
Right.
And that's what I've been looking for. And like why I keep bringing up that, like last night, I wanted to be somewhere where I didn't know anybody. Nobody knows me.
Right.
They don't know. I too can quote the big book, but I got a close friend that tells me, I don't give a shit if you can quote the big book. That means nothing to me. Anybody can memorize a few lines.
Right.
It's how you're living your life.
Right.
Is this a design for living for you?
Right.
And I'm just trying to like wrap my head around like, dude, how can I get that? I want to feel new again.
Right.
I want to be on fire again.
Right.
Because I'll if I'm honest about it, dude, and I'm sure you guys have probably experienced it too, and I'd like your insight on it, but like I've had my ups and downs in recovery where I'm like all in, and then I'm like, this ain't so exciting, and then I'm all in, but I've always been consistent.
Yeah.
Like I've never stopped showing up.
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of people fall flat on their face is when that cycle comes,
right,
then they're just out. They don't go to a meeting for over a year, whatever the case is.
Well,
that's scary.
I'll speak on that real quick. And I've talked about this, and Kevin, I want to know your thoughts on this. There was a period of time in my sobriety where probably a solid, I would say 2, maybe 3 years where I didn't go to a meeting. I wasn't helping anybody. I wasn't doing anything. I was just, doing work and the podcast and everything. And, my wife, when I got married, I was doing meetings and stuff like that. Right. But then, I kind of tailed off. Like when I first got sober in 2010, I was doing 90 and 90, whatever, 150, 300 and 300. I don't even know. But like AA was big. It was, it was what I was doing, right? I didn't have a wife. I didn't have kids. I didn't have really a lot of commitments. But as my sobriety kind of progressed, I started to tail off a little bit, right? And I started going to now 3 meetings a week and, 1 meeting a week and then none. And then I meet my wife and I'm Tom. I work in treatment. I have this podcast. I'm sober. And I was going to meetings, but not a lot. I would probably go to 1 a week but it went to, I wasn't going to any because now I get married and 5 months after I get married, now we're pregnant, right? And so then I got a kid coming on the way and I'm working and doing this. And then I have another kid and then I have another kid, right? So probably a solid 2-3 years passes by and I don't go to any meetings, maybe one here or there, like to see Ben pick up a medallion or something like that. Well, my wife got used to that. And when it came time, and I remember this distinctly, I ran into a buddy of mine at Starbucks out in Wellington, and he was there reading, Pepe was reading with a good friend of mine, Philip. And I don't know where I was going, but I ran into him at Starbucks. And they were like, hey, and I was talking to him, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? Oh, we're just reading, because Peter, Pepe, was sponsoring Philip, still sponsors him. This is probably 5-6 years ago. He's like, oh, we're reading. And I'm like, oh, cool. I'm just grabbing my coffee and heading out. So I go and I get my coffee and I leave. And it's like in my head, I'm like, man, like I'd like to hang out with these guys. You know what I mean? Like we know each other. We don't really talk. So I called Philip up. I'm like, hey, like what meetings are you going to? And he's like, oh, we go to this meeting at Mike's house every Wednesday night. And I'm like, oh, really? And I was not worried about drinking. I wasn't, on the risk of relapse. In fact, quite the opposite. I was good. And I went to my wife, and this is not her fault at all. Like she just doesn't know, right? I said, hey, I ran into Philip and Peter, and I think I'm going to start going to this meeting on Wednesday night. And she's like, why? Really? What's wrong?
Right.
Are you okay? Is everything going to be all right? Are you going to relapse? And like goes and just like, boo, goes like catastrophizes it because it had become so normal for me to not go to meetings and just go to work and come home and be a dad that when it came point in time to me want to start sprinkling meetings back in, it was like, well, something must be wrong. And it was like, no, that wasn't the case. I just was genuinely wanted to just go hang out. And so anyways, that's what I've been doing now since then for the last 5-6 years. I go to the same meeting every Wednesday. It's become a just part of my regular routine. Could I do more? Yes. Should I do more? Yes. Do I? No. But what was your question? But I feel like what I just said.
Feeling new again.
Getting that fire back, being a new guy.
Yeah, getting that fire back.
Yeah, and shortly after that, they said, hey, we're going down to see this speaker down in Boca. And like some circuit speaker. And I went down and they were like, you want to go? And I went with them. And that's where I heard the guy speak and I'm like, I remember this message, from like a year sober, 2 years sober, you know what I mean? Yeah. And it kind of ignited it again. And but that was a very that span of time when I wasn't going to meetings, looking back on it, hindsight being 2020 was just okay.
Right.
Would it have been sustainable? I don't know. And now those guys, like it's the same 7, 8, 9 of us that meet there every Wednesday. It's more like a men's group. We read out of the book. We do all that stuff. But Like we go on fishing trips together and, it's like my tribe. It's my community. The thing, and to hold myself accountable, because I do that, Ben, I don't have any sponsees. And I haven't had any in a long time. That's where I'm lacking. That's where like to feel new again, that would be what's next for me.
We were talking about it yesterday, like the triangle thing. And, the 3 legacies of my fault, the 3 legacies of AA. Oh, shoot. I was trying not to say the damn thing because when I do public stuff, I try not to name the specific fellowship because I'm a train wreck. You know what I'm saying? Like the anonymity thing is like, so if someone like me publicly says I'm a member of that fellowship and I relapse and I kill a kid in a car accident, it can give a public perception that that fellowship must not work because look at that public figure that did that. So I've always respected that. We don't have to be anonymous in the halls or among each other, but at radio, press, and film, because like I don't represent them as a whole, dude. I'm a disaster, So anyway, it is what it is. I said the big book a bunch of times, so most people know what that is anyway. So I'm not going to beat myself up. Sure. But talking about the 3 legacies, the triangle is unity, recovery, and service, right? And like, so when I am my wellest, I'm doing pretty well on all 3 sides. I'm going to a certain amount of meetings in unity. I'm hanging around sober people. I'm currently writing inventory, or I'm making amends, or I'm just doing a good job in 10 and 11. Like I'm active in my 12-step recovery process, and I'm making time in my busy life to help someone in service. So I'm active in the fellowship. I'm active in the 12 steps, and I'm active in service. And like, guess what? Lo and behold, I feel good. Shocker, right? So it's like, for me, the biggest blessing and problem I've had in my life is that as a direct result of being completely broken, like literally life on fire, nothing to live for, nothing to lose, everything's in pawn, license suspended, active warrant out of 3rd District Court, parents pissed. Like, it's easy from that position to be in a program to be like, God, whatever your will is for me, I'll do it. I don't care. And I had this thing where I totally surrendered and I just did what you guys told me to do. I thought it was goofy. I hated God. I didn't want to hold hands. Don't hug me. I'll slap you. You know what I'm saying? I'm not putting $1 in your basket. This looks real churchy. Like I was sick, dude. Knife on my hip, murder one, staring everybody down, aggressive. But I prayed every morning. I prayed every night. And I went to meetings and I met my sponsor once a week and I did the things he told me to do. But I still judged and was angry and I was not Mr. Recovery. Like, I was the guy you pick out of the group and you're like, that kid's never going to make it. I was that guy. But despite myself, somewhere along the line in my inventory, I got real and I got honest. And it's in the 5th step of the big book that it says, yes, we took our own inventory, all right, but we kept some of the worst items of stock in trade, which means if you're going to take the inventory, but not talk about that girl you took advantage of when you were drinking or getting molested as a kid or whatever creepy, shady, dark thing you want to take to your grave, if you're not going to expose the worst items of stock in trade, it's an absolute waste of time. And so like begrudgingly going through the steps, at some point being in big book meetings where they kept reading the book, I was like, shoot, I've done this much. I have to do it all. I can't hold anything back. I have to write everything. And I did. And in my 5th step, I said everything. And my sponsor didn't blink and he laughed and it never made it in the newspaper and I never heard it back on social media. And what happened was I didn't just lose the desire to drink and shoot heroin. I literally, this is why Derek laughs at me, like every time I respond to a text, I just hit rocket ship emojis, rocket ship, because the big book says, we've been rocketed into the 4th dimension of existence, of which we never even dreamed. That's what happened to me. Like, not only was I not drinking and not using, I was like, whew, I was high on the spirit, man. Like I was watching sunsets and sunrises. I was in awe of like leaves and foliage and flowers. And I was just like, my spirit was so lit on fire that I just felt bulletproof. I felt like, and I was running around. I had a beautiful girlfriend at the time. We got engaged and I started to get things, And I would run around and speak at meetings and say, take the job, take the girl, take the car, just give me the big book and someone to help. And I know I'm going to be okay. And I meant that with all my spirit. I had no attachment to the hot girlfriend in AA. I had no attachment to the car. I had no attachment to the job. I truly believe my purpose was to pray in the morning, pray at night, do step work and help other men find a relationship with a higher power. And I was high for years. First year was hard. Year 2, 3, and 4, on fire at all times. I didn't have a blah, blah, clear eyes guy, just don't drink and go to meetings. Like I had a drastic transformation of a tough guy, playboy, sick kid into like this open, spiritually sappy kid crying at movies. And so why I'm dragging that out is this. To be 14 years sober and just be sober is so not okay for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've tasted the fruit.
Mm.
I know what's possible. I don't want to just be sober and manage my bills and be the dad and do the checklist stuff. I want to be on fire. I want to be like in the fourth dimension saying, I love my kids, but God, if it's your will, you take the kids, you take the girl, you take the car, you take the big job, you take the MBA, and just leave me in a position to be helpful. Because this is my experience. When I surrendered all of material things to life and I told God he was the priority, God brought material blessings into my life. As I started to make material blessings the priority in my life, somehow some of those blessings have been extracted from my life. So how do I become new again? How about I do the things that I used to do?
You know, it's funny. I just had what should have been an obvious epiphany to myself. But like, I'm thinking back. I'm like, all right, what were the events that have occurred over the last few weeks, so to speak? You know, because I got called out. You know, and people are like, oh, your program doesn't look as strong as it was because people have this expectation and vision of what I've been doing for the past 14 years.
Right.
But one thing I will say is, like, now that I'm thinking about it, I intentionally put it in the universe out loud on what I was looking for, and it happened. To elaborate, dude, for instance, got called out, talked to multiple people about it, talked to Derek about it at the pool, ended up at that meeting last night. Check this out. When I walked out of that meeting last night, which it was an hour, maybe we were in there an hour and a half, I come out, dude, two of my old sponsees who have years texted me their page 86 inventories, and I hadn't heard from them in days. One of them weeks. I also had another sponsee who has 8 years reach out to me, who I haven't been to a meeting with in probably almost 2 years. And he's like, hey, can you go to a meeting with me this week? Mm-hmm. Like, I came out to like just a phone full of everything that I was looking for, dude. Right. I heard everything that you had to say, but I'm sitting here thinking, like, being out loud and intentional about it. And my version, I'm not like a religious guy by any means, but dude, that's prayer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and just putting it out there. I walk out of that meeting. I was on fire when I walked out last night. Mm. And that was all God.
And then all the next thing you know, here's a bunch of opportunities to be of service. Because guess what? If selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of our troubles, me consumed with self, I'm afraid of not getting what I want. I'm afraid of losing what I have. I'm afraid of what other people think of me. The solution to a self-centered person is to think of someone else. Right? And so like I tell myself this story. I have kids. I have an intense job. I have a side business. I don't have time to go to meetings. I don't have as much time to sponsor as much. I can't take... It's all a lie. I don't want to. I don't have the willingness to. Mm-hmm. I go to as many meetings as I'm willing to go because there's nights I have no kids and nothing to do and no reason to not go. But I'm like, nah, I'm going to go kick back on the recliner and watch basketball because that's what I want to do. And so like what I've been praying for recently is I've been praying for the willingness to do more because I don't want to do more. And I've been praying for the ability to surrender the things that are not important because it's true. The things I obsess about and the things I'm afraid of losing mean nothing, dude. The Cadillac means nothing. My apartment means nothing. The car, the jewelry, the watches, all, the degree, the job, none of it means nothing. It means nothing, dude. Because the truth is, if I lost it all, I would find someone would let me crash on their couch. My mom would let me come back in. Like the only thing that matters is that I stay sober and I find ways to be useful to other people. And then if I stay sober and I'm useful to other people, then I can be a good dad for those kids. And as long as I'm sober, no court would ever take those rights away from me. So like I get stressed out and all tweaked out about the things that don't matter. And I lose sight of what really matters. The only thing that really matters is like right now being here with you guys in this sober breath, free. I could go anywhere a free man could go. I don't need a babysitter. I don't need a sponsor. I didn't hit a meeting while I was out here. Well, I wouldn't have. I ended up speaking at one. But like the big book says, like if you're spiritually fit, you can go to sleep in a liquor store. You can go pull your friend out of a crack house and bring him to detox and not be tempted at all. So drugs and alcohol are not the problem. They never were. My anxiety, my unchecked, unhealed spirit is the problem. And it may manifest in other behaviors, not drugs and alcohol right away, but I don't want to do any of that. Like I want to be peaceful and I want to be on fire. And what I found at 14 years sober, successful, I make a little money and have some things is I now care about those things. I'm now attached to those things. I now don't want to lose those things. Well, guess what? The harder I hang on to this Cadillac or this job or this title or even other people's image or my reputation, the more likely I'm going to blow it up and ruin it anyway. Where I'm at for me right now today, I'm trying to get back to, because I'm not there, honestly. I'm still in a process. I want to get back to, thank you, God. I don't know nothing. I'm done. I don't care about the girl. I don't care about the job. I don't care about my reputation. None of that matters. God, you can have it all. Just help me stay sober and help me be useful to other people. Because I believe that the God, the nameless, faceless power that has inspired all religions, doesn't want me to suffer. Wants me to be blessed and wants me to be happy. But if I put importance on those things over that power, then I think I'm in conflict with the universe. And that's what I'm trying to get back to. I worked so hard to get a degree. I worked so hard to get a good job. I worked so hard to acquire some things that in that process, I became attached to them. And my attachment to them creates fear that creates disharmony in my spirit. And none of it's important. None of it matters. So I'm trying to get back to that newcomer in the halfway house where I had nothing to lose, to just surrender again and be like, God, like none of it matters. And it's not my motive. But my belief is like, if I get back to the place where nothing matters, then I'll be continued to be blessed. If it matters and I'm fighting for it and I'm stepping on the toes of my fellows and they retaliate, guess what? The job's not going to work out. I'm going to lose the material things. I'm never going to be in harmony with the baby mama. And I'm always going to be in conflict with someone or something, even though my motives are good. Right? So it's a process. Like there's been months and years where like I'm on fire and bulletproof. I don't swear and I help people. And then there's weeks or months where like I'm a complete savage and, acting like a newcomer, so it is a day at a time. It is a daily reprieve. And I think it's important. And, what's funny is we all have 14 years, again, the trifecta, the triangle, the chairs are in a goddamn triangle, bro. You know what I'm saying? And like, I think it's important because we get on our little high horse and I've spoken at some conventions and I've done some things, right? It's important for you to go to a meeting where everybody knows you and to say, hey, look, I know you all know me, but I'm not okay. Or I'm going through this stuff. So from a little out of pocket, this is why. Because if you got a week or a year and maybe you're making amends and you still got anxiety and you're still having problems with personal relationships and you're still a prey to misery and depression and you're still experiencing some of page 52, you'll think that you're doing it wrong. I'm grateful for the people before me that had 10, 20, 30 years that were like, yo, I was not okay. I went through a divorce, but here's the solution. This is what I did. I went back to God. I asked for help. I tried to help other people. I did some inventory and I got through it sober and now I'm okay. Because my ego says it matters what people think. And Bill Wilson, this is a quote from Bill Wilson. He said, the only tragedy of Alcoholics Anonymous is he lost his ability to be an alcoholic in a meeting because everybody knew who he was. And instead of just being an anonymous person in a meeting trying to hear a message everywhere he went, it's Bill W., it's Bill W. So there is, there's some truth to that pressure in the community when everyone knows you. And maybe that means you got to travel a little further to go to a meeting that all your clients and all the people that you know are not at, so you can have the anonymity and the freedom and the space to say, I'm not okay, and not have everyone like in your immediate little local community or in your business be affected. Because at the end of the day, like I got to save myself. My ego will tell me I'm fine and everyone else sucks. And like next thing you know, I'm getting high. I pray that that's not God's will for me. I know that I've been given the gift of gab. Always been a playboy, a car salesman, a drug dealer, talk a dog off a meat wagon, all that shit. I used all the speaking to manipulate people and get what I wanted. And I really believe that God was like, yeah, no, I'm going to use you, mouthpiece. We're going to use you here. Battery in your back. Here's a message to carry and go out there and help my other kids. That's my purpose. My purpose isn't to acquire businesses and money and impress people, dude. That's not my purpose. That means nothing. My primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics. I believe that, so it's these opportunities that help me remind myself, because when I'm talking about recovery, I'm not just talking to you and whoever your audience is. I'm reinforcing in me that I am still a powerless alcoholic. My life can still be unmanageable if it's run on Kevin's will, and like left up to me, I'll take my own will back and make a mess of my life. So like, that's what I love about sponsorship and reading the book with the guy. Dude, I've sponsored hundreds of guys. I've heard like 15 fifth steps. But guess what? I've stayed sober because every time I'm reading those first 4 or 5 chapters to those guys, I'm reinstilling it in myself. I am powerless. I have an allergy. There is a power greater than myself. I can't be the actor and the director. I got to surrender it. So like those people come and go. A lot of them don't finish the work. But when I'm in that act of surrender and I'm being compliant with my higher power, guess what I'm doing? I'm not at home watching basketball. I don't want to sponsor this guy. I don't want to, after working all day, read this book with this guy for an hour and a half who's probably not going to write a fourth step. I got shit to do. But I do it anyway.
If it's not inconvenient, you're not doing it right.
It's not good.
That's what I always
work.
tell myself.
Yeah,
that ain't
dude.
service work. Yeah.
Yep.
Bro.
I'm going to keep coming. I don't know. That's all I know.
That was good. We're coming up on an hour. Let's start landing this plane, shall we?
Yes.
That was
You
awesome.
got a plane to catch.
I got a lot of good clips I can get out of that too. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you guys.
Kevin,
I need it.
Are you a Celtics fan?
I am.
Yeah, I figured when you said at home watching basketball. That's a good team to watch.
Yeah.
So, so what do you do for work?
Yeah, so I've been actually in the field for about 12 years. At like 2 years sober, I got a job as a case manager. In Mass, they have something that's called a CSP, and you pick people up and drive them to appointments. It's only for Medicaid people. Did that for 2 years. Then I got certified as a recovery coach and an interventionist and a family coach. Worked for a nonprofit on Cape Cod for 10 years. Started doing outreach and business development. And now I work for New England Medical Group, which is an adolescent program in Mass. Well, adolescent and adult. They got 6 programs, 4 adult, 2 adolescent. And so now I'm the senior director of community engagement. And what I do is I go out in the world and I talk to doctors and schools and adjustment counselors and pediatricians and anyone that'll hear me, kind of telling them about the services we provide, but not just the salesy BD guy. I also do trainings. So I do like in-services and CE events where I go in and I teach people about addiction. I teach them about the brain science and the prefrontal cortex and the limbic system and dopamine and all of those things to help them better understand what addiction is. And I do primary prevention talks in high schools. I go in, I do a whole 1-hour PowerPoint. I started a side business, ACEs, Addiction Consulting and Education Services, where like I take on a whole auditorium, dude, and this is my happy place. Like, this is a little nerve-wracking because it's on video. Like, at work is work, but like, you give me a mic and put me in front of 600 kids in an auditorium and I'm glowing, dude. I love it. And instead of just lecturing them, what I do is I say, look, I'm not going to scare you because the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision-making, impulse control, and risk assessment, is not developed. So scaring a kid doesn't work. What I'm going to do is give you some information and you can do whatever you want with it. And even the kids that are vaping and smoking and experimenting, they have a cousin or a dad or somebody who's got a real issue. So I try to get them to drop their guard so I can land the science on them. And I talk about adverse childhood experiences. I talk about trauma, and I talk about things, the factors that lead to substance use. And the reality is, because drugs and alcohol are not the problem for me, not telling them not to do drugs and alcohol is not the solution for prevention. Prevention is about how do we identify people with low self-esteem, insecurity, kids that have experienced trauma, people that are not comfortable in their own skin. The most common thing you hear from the podium, I was not comfortable. And how do we help them become comfortable? How do we give them coping skills, resiliency, get them connected to therapy, and help them heal so that they don't have to use drugs, so they don't have to use alcohol, so they don't have to have risky sex behavior or self-harm behaviors. And like, that's where I just feel most used. That's where I feel most blessed, because we can help adults all day and people get well and it's beautiful, but like, why not try to get them earlier, the early intervention, or even before they even experiment? So I've double dipped because a couple of years ago, I started the consulting education company. And then a friend of mine who was running these programs was opening adolescent. And they were like, yo, Uncle Kev. They all call me Uncle Kev because I'm like older than them. They're like, they see me on TikTok and doing these little talks. They're like, dude, can you come do that for us? Like in our area? And it was like a win-win. Like, I'm engaging the community. I'm educating the community. And it's like, also, now I'm a face in the community where, like, if some of those teens actually need help, they call us and we're able to help them on the clinical side. So, you know, it's been a journey. Like I said, I went to school for a long time, and my goal is to get bigger, you know, move up into more of a leadership management position, because the BD and the outside stuff and the sales is important. But like, for me, like, I want to be involved in creating change, programmatic change, cultural change, staff development, like, from the inside out, and then having the worker bees go out and spread the good news about the work you're doing. But at this point in my career, I've had a lot of fun doing the outside BD stuff, but like, I'm in the next year or so, you'll see me, you know, growing within this company and taking more of that on. but it's still nice to get out once in a while and share some of that information, because it's not dare, it's not scared straight. It's a different message. And I don't even take credit for it. Like, I've been around good clinical and medical people that taught me about adverse childhood experiences, that taught me about the limbic system and dopamine. Oxytocin is a chemical that makes you feel safe. How could you forget that if you got high on OCs, right? Oxytocin is the love chemical, or the safety chemical that you can get when grandma hugs you, or even if you walk into Nana's house and you smell her famous apple pie, it can actually release a chemical that makes you feel safe, right? So how do we tap into these natural endorphins and dopamines and oxytocins, and how do we use adrenaline in a healthy way to feel good? And it's mind, body, spirit. It has nothing to do with drugs and alcohol. It's about healthy living, finding peace and happiness, and like living a healthy, holistic life. So just trying to use these experiences to, be helpful to other people, and just continue to kind of learn along the way.
Man. ACEs, where do people find that?
Addiction-education.com. That's my website. My email is kevin@addiction-education.com. Check it out. There's some clips on there. I got like testimonials from principals, from teachers, from first responders, people that were, at the presentations that gave feedback. And the feedback is usually like, it's just different and it's authentic and it's science and information that I've learned from smarter people than me. But I just try to deliver it in a real way. Just talk to them. You can't think about it like this. Public speaking 101. Who's your audience? No, scratch that. What's your message? Who's your audience? How do you deliver the message to land on the audience? The same information can be given to a kid, to a social worker, and to a cop, but you got to deliver it 3 different ways if you want it to land on that audience. So 14-year-old Kevin Rosario, I'm smoking weed. I'm already selling joints. Get 5, right? Sell 4, get the 5th one free. The dare guy comes in. I'm like, this guy's an idiot. I can't wait to leave here and smoke a joint. You know what I'm saying? You can't scare me. Don't threaten me. I don't got a pubic hair in my body, but I think I'm a grown-ass man. So if there's at least a dozen of those guys in the crowd, how are you going to talk to your Kevin Rosario self? Be dismissive. Be respectful. Hey, look, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm not trying to talk down to you. I'm not going to threaten you, and I'm not going to disrespect you. I know I can't convince you to do anything, because even if you are experimenting, it's impossible for your brain to comprehend that it'll ever be a problem. It's not possible. So I'm not going to even try to do that. But maybe you know someone else that has a problem. So here's some information, and you hope it lands, right? And if you just repeat this information over and over again, maybe the day will come where like that information comes to the top. Because in 2004, when I went to jail for my second DUI and a gun charge, I was playing the game. I was going to meetings and playing the game, get my slip signed. I didn't want to be sober. But in 2010, when I was broken, and I checked in a detox on day 1, I remembered, if you want any chance of staying sober, you got to pray in the morning, ask a higher power to remove the obsession, try to hit a meeting, try not to drink for one day, thank the higher power at night. Pray in the morning, pray at night, hit a meeting. Pray in the morning, pray at night, hit a meeting, try not to use one day at a time. Like, even though I didn't want to, I went to enough meetings where that penetrated my thick skull. So when the time came that I actually wanted help, that information was there. So again, I don't have huge expectations on like changing every kid's trajectory, but like, hey, let's talk to them like young adults. Let's respect their intelligence. Let's give them information, and maybe they can use it to help someone else. Maybe when the day comes when they see they're kind of getting a little out of pocket and going down the wrong road, they'll be like, oh, remember that kid said, Kevin Rosario, I'm building a tolerance. Maybe I'm addicted to dopamine. Maybe the solution is find a healthy, holistic way to feel better, because drugs and alcohol are a joke. It's temporary relief, It's an illusion. It works for a while. It's fun until it doesn't work anymore. And next thing you know, you're like drunk, high, addicted. Your life's on fire, and you still feel like shit. Then what?
Yeah, man. Ben, what do you got? Any final thoughts?
No, dude. I've enjoyed the last 24 hours, but the time that I've been around you, man, like I've gotten a lot out of it. Be selfish about it, and that just is what it is for today, dude.
Thanks.
That was awesome.
I appreciate you guys.
Heading back to Mass?
Yeah, I got a flight tonight, 7:30. I think I actually got a notification. I had a 7 o'clock flight. It's now 7:27. So I'll be back in Mass by 10:30. And
oh boy.
Yeah, it's all
hopefully the delays don't like.
Yeah, sometimes they compound.
Oh God!
But
next thing you know, you're flying out at midnight.
I know, which you know what, honestly, is fine because I get my kids from daycare tomorrow, and selfishly, I want to stay till Friday. But the fear and reality that delays could be a thing, I always leave the night before.
Yeah.
So even if they mess with me all night, as long as I get back to Mass before like 2 p.m., whatever, dude, I'll be good. I'll get my kids. And
how old are you?
I'm 45.
This is going to be a totally random question, but are you friends with Dave Portnoy?
No, I'm not.
Do you know Dave Portnoy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys grew up in the same area. So,
Yep.
well, I say same area, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
But, you know,
He's a big deal, dude. You get him. He's good for views, man. He's got like a huge following.
Davey Page views.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nah.
One bite. Everybody knows the rules.
I don't think
Yeah.
he would have anything to offer this podcast.
True.
I mean, he would in some capacity, but
Doesn't really fit the same subject matter.
nah, not really.
Yeah.
No. He's very open about popping Adderalls left and right. So
Is he?
Yeah.
Let's tell him we want to do a pizza review. Bring him in. We'll do an intervention on him.
yeah.
There we
yeah.
go.
So, cool, Kevin. Well, appreciate you coming on, man. Open invite anytime you're in town. You hit us up.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Been a pleasure.
All right. That is it for this episode of Real Recovery Talk. Thank you for tuning in. In the end, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can always reach us, info@realrecoverytalk.com. Again, that's info@realrecoverytalk.com. And ultimately, we want to help you turn your mess into your message. That is it. We will see y'all later.